Well, hello all. Have a look at this lovely little circuit which you can use on the back of your bicycle or motorbike or your car, or if you just want to draw attention to something, have a look at this lovely little LED flashing Night Rider circuit. So all that the circuit has are LEDs. Now I keep all my components, like this is just my box of LEDs, and there's just one bag of LEDs. I've got multiple bags, you collect them. So those I bought from China. They got all different colored ones. So you can, instead of having monocolor, then I've got some that are infrared. I don't know if these are, and so on. So we got boxes and boxes of the stuff. And then the only other thing in the circuit apart from 9 LEDs is a resistor. So I organize all my resistors like this. So they go from 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 up to 100. Then 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 1,000, then 1,000 to 10,000, 10,000 to 100,000, and so on. So I arrange all my resistors, and a resistor is just one of these things. So the circuit only has one resistor that's going to stop. You know, LEDs need a resistor, otherwise the current overwhelms them and they just burn out. Have a look at the circuit when the lights are now off. So that's quite a beautiful little circuit. Now, yesterday I spoke about how South African education system is failing, and it's destined to continue failing because it doesn't promote a culture of science. And science is a subject that requires a culture. It's like football. You can't just play football if you're not passionate about it. You can't do science if you're not passionate about it and you think, yes, I really want to make a difference with science. And you know, science is something that can change the world. Just so where are we going to get a culture of science from, or a culture of anything? Now, a lot of the things that I learned, and you'll find that most people do too, you learn somewhere other than in school. So say you you might have been in a play at school, and you found you loved the audience appreciation of your talent, and then you became an actor. But that's not part of the actual, well, you could call it part of the school life, but many schools don't have plays. Or many a singer learned to sing in the church choir. I learned all my stealth camping skills in the Boy Scouts. I was a Boy Scout, a Springbok Scout for many years, and so I learned to love stealth camping, working with axes and trees and building stuff and huts and so on. So that was my where I learned that. And then electronics, all these circuits that I'm showing you, I haven't had a day's formal education in either electronics or in computing. And the only course I went to computing was so that the school could get a classroom full of computers, but they didn't teach me anything I didn't at that stage already know. So I taught myself. I bought a ZX81 and started teaching myself basic programming. Then I got a ZX Spectrum and so on. And then with PIC programming, I just one day, I don't know how I learned about these microprocessors, but I went and bought a PIC programmer from, I remember a long trip on my motorbike to some distant place, got it from a guy who was very helpful, and started PIC programming. And at that stage, my son was neither interested in PIC programming nor electronics. But then after many years and looking at my projects and so on, he became interested, and very soon, because he's a genius and I'm not, he became 10, 20 million times better than me. So now he's my mentor. And this is what I want to talk about, mentorship. You're going to always find that if you're alive to it, you're going to find there's someone who can teach you. Say you wanted to become a guitarist, you're going to find if you are passionate about it and you're prepared to put in the time and you have the enthusiasm, the passion, you will, if you're really persistent, will find a mentor. You'll find someone who will teach you, help you even for free. And maybe you just offer your services in repayment. So whatever you can do, say you can garden, you can do the person's garden and they'll teach you how to play the guitar or do electronics. There's a lot of mentoring online. I learned a lot of, when I got stuck with electronic projects, I joined a group called Electronics Point. These guys are amazing. They're all brilliant geniuses. It's their job. They make electronic circuits for a living, and then they give you their time free online. So you're building a project and you get stuck, and then you go online, you take a photograph, you draw the circuit, you show them, please help me. And these guys are so amazing how they give their time without grumbling, and they're so helpful and wonderful. So there's your mentoring. You can get that online, but I would say be so much better. There must be some old dude like myself in your neighborhood. If you could find out, maybe you go through your science teacher or some club, you look for clubs, and you'll find there's someone there that could teach you how to do electronics or computer programming. Maybe you have a friend or whatever. So it's a matter of respect the fact that you're a community. There's a relationship involved. You need a mentor. Now, even this circuit, and with my many decades of programming computers and playing with electronics, I actually got stuck, and I knew that I needed to get my 9 LEDs, set up the circuit. That was all easy. But then I knew I needed an array, and because I'm new to Python, I couldn't figure out how you get an array of LED 1 to 9 and how you number them, and then I have various loops that just loops through, and I'll show you the circuit, the program, and then it just loops through switching each LED and turn on. But you need the LEDs numbered 0 to 8, or 1 to 9, but I number them 0 to 8. And then you say switch on 0, and then you have a for loop, which then switches on the next one and the next one. And when it gets to 9, you can either start at the beginning again, or you can go back from 9, count down to 8. You can have 4 next loops that go backwards. Or you could start in the middle and go outwards, or you could start on the outside and come back to the middle, both outsides and come to the middle, and so on. So you can switch these LEDs and make that beautiful pattern by just playing with loops. So I did get stuck at the beginning, and you did help me to how you initialize an array in Python. And, I looked a lot online, and I still couldn't find for that particular Python how you initialize an array where you can number your LEDs, and LED 0, 1, 2 to 9. And so this is the beauty of I have a mentor who lives in the same house with me. I just have to go and call him, hey, please help me. And he's always willing to help me. Now, my wife used to complain, he's so much more willing to help you than he is to help her. But the reason is I will have spent hours trying to get this right, and then I just come to him when I get stuck. I just leave the project and wait for him to wake up, and then I will go and ask him, how do you do this? And then it's just like 5-10 minutes of his time. Whereas my wife's idea was, I've got this computer problem, won't you just do the whole thing for me? He thinks it's going to take hours. He's just not that interested. So if you're going to be mentored, you've got to do the hard work. You can't just expect your mentee or the guy who's helping you to your mentor. Who's the mentor? The mentor is the guy who teaches you. You're the mentee. Okay. So you need to make sure that you're going to do all the work, and then you're just going to come to him and not waste his time, and you're going to appreciate his time, and you're going to not cop an attitude, and you're just going to do everything possible to make his life easy, so that when you need the help, he's there to just help you with that where you get stuck. And that's the best kind of relationship. And even if he doesn't live with you, maybe you could phone him, and these days you can send pictures and or whatever. So like I learned a lot of what I learned in the Boy Scouts, or I learned this all by myself, programming, and it really is useful now that my son is so much better than me, that he can help me whenever I get stuck. I never feel ever that there's something that he can't figure out and fix, either in electronics or certainly in programming. So it's wonderful you've got to find someone like that. But I was thinking, like, even another wonderful hobby that I had was building these balsa wood aeroplanes, and then I had a baby petrol engine that I would attach to it, and then we did static line flying, and then I had a friend who was also doing the same thing, and then we'd have dog fights we'd stand in the center of a circle and we'd fly, the planes would fly after each other, and we'd have dog fights. We always flew the planes to destruction, and then we'd go and build a new plane. So balsa wood, and then cover it with we would cover it with tracing paper, or very light material, or occasionally silk, and then dope the plane. So I know that if I wanted to, I could actually build a little World War I type biplane out of wood and silk or fabric. And I know that if I had the tools, the time, the motivation, I would love to build a little biplane or triplane and be the Red Baron and just fly around in the sky slowly with my 200 horsepower engine or something like that. That would be my life goal. Then I could die. I'd be quite happy. I'd have accomplished everything I ever wanted to do. But so that is the thing. I learned this hobby from my dad, who took a matchbox once. And in those days, the matchboxes were made out of pine wood, and he slit it into these tiny little sticks. And then he got glue, Bostik, and glued all the sticks together, and he covered it with tissue paper, put a lump of putty on their nose, and we flew it from the top of the garden to the bottom, and that started my love of planes. I think he only showed me once how to build a little plane out of these tiny little sticks, like a matchbox wood. It's very thin and very light little plane, but it flew quite nicely, and he bent the wings to make it balance and fly properly. And then for 4 years after that, at least, I was building on a regular, and I could spend a whole holiday just from sunrise to sunset just building these planes. And then once they were built, we flew them, and we never brought them back from the park until they had crashed and worn out. It just was like that. And even while we were there, we would pin these planes back together and break a wing. We put lots of pins with it. We'd pin the wing back on, and we'd keep on flying until the second wing fell off or something like that. So that was just part of the fun of it. So a lot of the stuff that you learn in life, you're going to learn not in school, not even in university. Now, I want to say the value of school was I learned at school that I liked science. I learned that I didn't like maths or Afrikaans or, I liked most of the other subjects, mostly because I liked the teachers in those other subjects. I didn't like our Afrikaans or math teachers. I thought they were pretty useless teachers. But all the other teachers were brilliant. So one learned to like those subjects. But I still found that I liked science more. So that's what basically I say. That's the only thing that school did. I can't really say. I suppose I got some knowledge there. Then I went to Wits University and did a BSc because I knew I liked science. And Wits University 50 years ago did what I consider a culture of science, because you would go to lectures in the morning, which I considered a total waste of time. The lecturer would walk into the room and write notes on a green board, and then he'd pull the green board up and write more notes, and all you did was you copied down these stupid notes. Oh, what a stupid system. I can't tell you how stupid notes were. If I had to do it over, this is what I actually did. My notes were always terrible. I just you find a girl who's taking brilliant notes. You don't take notes, you sit and listen, and then you say to her, please, can I photocopy your notes? I'll pay you whatever, I'll take you out, or whatever it takes to get her notes, photocopy them, and then you got a decent set of notes to study from. But I found that taking notes, I couldn't listen to the lecturer, and my notes were shocking, my handwriting was shocking. I wrote slowly, there was stuff missing, so it was incredibly hard to study from my own notes, but brilliantly easy to study from her notes. So that I found worked well. And then the brilliant thing about Wits University is, say in your first year BSc, you did 4 modules. 4 afternoons a week from 2 to 5, you would be doing physics experiments, or you'd be doing chemistry, or you'd be dissecting every single animal in the whole, every single class in the whole animal kingdom. We dissected plants, we looked at the inside, the outside, the physiology, the ecology, the biodiversity of everything. So it was really practical. So there was like a culture of science, but I must say, I was in those days under 20 years old. I didn't really appreciate it, but I do appreciate the fact they tried their hardest to give a culture of science, and I really appreciate the practicalness of Wits University. And then later on, when I was already teaching for a decade, they paid you much more if you got a B.Ed, so I registered with UNISA, and they send you the notes, which is wonderful. You just got to memorize them and then poop them out in the exam. And I found I was brilliant at that. So for a B.Ed, I was getting all A's and B's for the first time ever in my life, because I started a month early, which I'd never done at Wits, because I felt if you're attending lectures in the morning and you're doing practicals in the afternoon, where do you have a life? Are you expected to go home in the evening and study? Yes. That is what you're supposed to do at university. You're supposed to spend your time between the morning and the afternoon, like at lunchtime, studying what they taught you. Oh, I just studied the few days before the exam, and I passed the BSc that way. Luckily, I have very good short-term memory. I can cram it in. It falls out just as fast, but I could cram it in before the exam. Spent many a night just working right through the night before the exam. Managed to pass BSc. So I was kind of resistant to the culture of science, purely because I was young and inexperienced. And then, as I say, with UNISA, where they send you the notes, I started a month earlier, summarized the notes on a big thing, and then I would memorize the notes, I'd form mnemonics about the notes, and I could just regurgitate those notes, and I got my A's and B's. I was always disappointed if I didn't get an A. And I found that a B.Ed was totally worthless and useless. I didn't learn a thing, because when you've been teaching 10, 15 years, you want to know, how do you learn classroom discipline? No one's teaching you that. And I learned more about classroom discipline in later years by watching Caesar Milan. I am the pack leader. You've got to be the pack leader. You've got to walk into that classroom. You're going to dominate it. I'm the pack leader. You're the pack. I'm telling you where you're going to go. So Caesar Milan, he's brilliant. If you come into that classroom with weak energy and you look pathetic and you look apologetic, and the kids are just going to walk all over you. So you've got to take charge. You've got to be maybe above and beyond your normal introverted personality. You've got to be an extrovert. You've got to be large and in charge. If you're going to be the pack leader, or the pack will just walk all over you, and you'll mess it up. So even if you're not feeling confident and you walk into that room, you're telling yourself, I am the pack leader and I am going to take charge here. And so, as I say, I learned more from Caesar Milan about teaching kids than I ever learned with my higher education diploma at Wits University, or even with a B.Ed from UNISA. But, again, mentorship is just so important, that most of the skills that you learn, even when I started teaching, it wasn't what I learned at university that helped me. It was a matter of, you teach yourself on the job, because you prepare for each lesson. And there are many teachers that are not embarrassed when they can't do the problem. But how can you, if there's a problem in the matric exam that you can't do, and the kid asks you how to do it, and you don't bother to take the time to go home, and if you get stuck, go and find someone who will teach you. And this is what I found. There's no mentoring in the school system. Those science teachers are alone, especially the new ones. And they're embarrassed. They will not ask the subject advisor, because they think the subject advisor is going to think badly of them. And the subject advisors are busy, and they don't even bother to answer you many a time. Frankly, I've had really great subject advisors, and I'm not impressed with the current batch. And the younger teachers don't know how to do these things. They don't know how to do the practical. They don't know how to set the exam. And there are lots of problems, like in the matric paper. If you had to sit the same teacher who's been teaching these matriculants to write that paper, I wonder what mark he would get. I think it'd be a marvelous system that teachers have to write the matric exam with their pupils. And you pay them, say they get 90%, you pay them 90% of their salary. Say they get 40%, you pay them 40% of their salary. So the teacher, the science teacher, should sit and write the exam and get it marked, as with the kids, and then you just pay them whatever fraction. Say they get a 40%, the teacher gets 40% in the exam. It's only 40% worth paying. No one would like that idea, but I think it's a brilliant idea. Yeah, so pay the teachers. Say I'm gonna pay you 150% more than you're currently being paid, but you got to write the matric exam, and that's going to deduct whatever you say. The teacher gets 80%. I'm going to deduct 20% from that 150% increase that I've given you. Say, okay, so that's just an idea. So there we go. Let me show you how we programmed the circuit to switch these LEDs on and off. So here is our program. I named it Night Rider Lights or Bicycle Lights, but to run any Thonny program. So this is Thonny running a Pi Pico using microPython as the programming language. So any program that you want to run, you have to call it main.py, and then you can actually save it as Night Rider or whatever. Then you import a pin and pulse width modulation. I didn't use the pulse width modulation, but I imported it in case in future I wanted to. So you just have to write import pin, because you're going to have to import, you're going to use 9 pins of this machine. You're going to sleep, you're going to have to use a timer that's going to have the pins on and off. And when they're on and when they're off, they've got to sleep while they're on and they're off, meaning stay on, stay off. Now here was the part that I needed help with. And we found this somewhere on the internet for this particular microPython, that to have an array, you have to have, you say array equals, you put none into this array. You just put something in there and then times 20. So you're going to use a maximum of 20 lights. So this is the syntax. Then you say, you start a for next loop for x or any number. This is just a variable in the range 0 to 20. Array x, so you're starting with 0. So element 0, which is your first LED, equals pin x, pin out. Now this is initiating what you're going to now number all the pins. Array 1, array 2, array ARR1, ARR2. That's the name you've given it. You could have called it pin x or whatever you wanted, or LED x. This name you choose. You choose that AARR name. Then you stick to it. But you've got to initiate each pin and tell each pin that you're going to use that it's an out pin. It's going to send out a signal that's going to have light. Here I set the delay so that when I go to this program and I delay, I can change just this one little thing here, and I can make the whole array go faster or slower. Now, while true starts in a continuous loop. So most programs, if you want them to just loop continuously, not just do it once, you say while true : Now you're using for next loop. So all the rest of the program is just this repeated. For x, so x is a variable in range 0 to 8. So we got, starting with pin 0 going to pin 8, we're going to do 8 times, we're going to cycle through this. Array, starting at 0, so array ARR0, that's pin number 0, is going to be switched on or high. Then it's going to sleep for 0.05 seconds. Then it's pin number 0 is going to be switched low, it's going to be switched off. Then we're going to sleep for 0.5 seconds, and then we're going to go, this loop is just going to go back and now do pin number 1, and it's going to do that, switch it on and switch it off. Pin number 2, pin number 3, pin number 4. So each pin is left off. So you're going to see, if you saw 8 people standing in a row, you're going to find the first person stands up, then stands down. So the LED comes off, comes, and then comes on, and then comes off. So the person stands up, stands down. Then the second person stands up, then sits down, if you were to illustrate it with people equals the LED. Now, then I could go backwards. So I could start, instead of starting on the left with the left light, I start with the right light and I work backwards. The rightmost person stands up, then sits down, then we're working backwards. Then what I did here was I repeated it. Okay, so we just did it twice so you could see it. Let's just go to something interesting here. Okay, let's have a look here. So here I did something slightly different. For X in range 0 to 8, so we're going to talk to each LED in turn. Switch the LED on, delay again, and then switch the next LED on. So now it'll be like person number 1 standing up. There's a delay. Then person number 2 stands up while number 1 is still standing up. We did not switch number 1 off. This hash here means this switching off is disempowered. So now we get 1 stand up, then 1 and 2 are standing up. Then 3 stands up while 1 and 2 are still standing up. So we now have 3 LEDs on. And so it goes till all 8 LEDs are on. So that looks lovely. And then we work backwards and we switch the LED. While they're still all on, we now switch them off, starting on the right, and we're moving our way back. One at a time, we switch them all off. So by just these different for loops, this is just repeated all the time with different patterns of lights. And that is how we got all those different effects, by just switching each LED one at a time on and off, while either leaving the previous one on or switching the previous one off before we go on to the next one.